this was a very big shift in how philosophers and scientists looked at the world thereafter. So Descartes was also very keen on trying to figure out how nature worked by talking about laws of nature, or the kinds of laws that we can derive from observation and from using human reason. And Descartes also sets the stage for somebody who's going to disagree with him quite heavily, and that's going to be Isaac Newton, who comes a little bit after Descartes. He's also responsible for helping us develop algebraic geometry. So maybe you've heard of Cartesian coordinate systems. So he had a lot of influence on mathematics. He also gave us arguments for God's existence, gives us interesting insights into the mind-body problem, as well as some views on skepticism. So in his infamous Meditations on First Philosophy, he provides a groundwork for not only epistemology, but also how we should conceptualize scientific knowledge in particular. Okay, so Descartes is a rationalist, so he does think that we use human reason, and particularly he sees sense experience as unreliable, an unreliable source of knowledge, because our senses often go wrong. We can be tired, we can be incapacitated, we can be dreaming. There are lots of reasons to doubt the reliability of knowledge that comes from the senses. So instead, he wants to give us a foundation. This is why we talked about foundationalism in the previous lecture. He wants to give us a foundation as firm as that which supports unshakable mathematical truths about knowledge. So he assumes that knowledge requires certainty. And he tries to do that to show that we can potentially arrive at a first principle of knowledge. So from all this doubting, from all the skepticism that we can entertain, he thinks, well, we can at least arrive at something. So he says, it seems to me that already I can establish as a general rule that all things which I perceive very clearly and very distinctly are true. And he does that because he gives us various interesting and compelling thought experiments about being deceived by an evil genius, being deceived by God, maybe dreaming, things that would later be used for things like computer simulation thought experiments. Like maybe this is all one big computer simulation, to show that the senses are really unreliable. So how do we get out of skepticism, according to Descartes? Well, what's one thing that cannot be doubted? Well, if we're thinking, we exist. So if I think, therefore I am, hence the famous philosophical line, je pense donc je suis in French, which means I think, therefore I am. Because no matter if we're being deceived or if we're incapacitated or dreaming, so long as we're thinking, Descartes thinks, it's proving that we exist, because there has to be something there to be deceived. So Descartes thinks, here's our first thing that we can know. We know that if we're thinking, we exist. So there's our first piece of knowledge that serves as the foundation for all other knowledge that we can build on top of that. So I wish we were in class, because we could think of examples that that would satisfy Descartes' notion of something that we perceive clearly and distinctly. So maybe you can pause here and think about some examples of things that you really think that you know clearly and distinctly, and see if it matches up with how Descartes formulates it. But we'll leave this exercise aside for now. Okay, so he gives a couple of arguments that I've already mentioned. I'm not going to go over all the details here, but essentially what Descartes is doing is he's trying to show how we can get out of skepticism. And for him, the only way we can get out of skepticism is by not relying on the senses as a foundation for knowledge. Because as I mentioned, the senses are unreliable. They're not foolproof. In fact, they often lead us astray. We become dehydrated and see things in the desert. We don't get enough sleep and we start hearing noises. We eat some bad food and become disoriented, right? There are all kinds of examples where our senses deceive us. And because of that, Descartes thinks we should never want to build our system of knowledge, our foundation for knowledge, on something that's so unreliable. But what is reliable? Well, the human mind, human reason. And that's going to provide the solid foundation from which we can build the existence of God, minds and bodies, and then up to empirical knowledge. But it has to start with human reason, and it has to start with a thinking thing. And from there, we can build other things that we can know very famously. So here's a formulation of what is called Descartes' deconstruction argument. If certain sensory perceptions are occurring, then there is a source of the resulting beliefs. If we can doubt the reliability of these sources, then we should doubt the beliefs themselves. If we can doubt the beliefs themselves, then they are not knowledge. We can doubt the reliability of sensory perceptions for reasons I just mentioned. Therefore, we cannot know that they are occurring. So essentially, this is formalizing Descartes' argument against knowledge resting on empirical inputs, because if they can be doubted, then they can't be objects for knowledge. So they can't be the foundation, rather, for knowledge. Okay, and here's another argument for why we shouldn't trust the senses, Descartes' famous dream argument, right? Because like Descartes, you might think, well, I've had dreams that are so real, I thought I was in them. I thought it was real life. And Descartes says, yeah, that should show you that you should never rely on the senses to provide knowledge. So the argument goes roughly like this. If I am dreaming that some immediate experience, call it X, is occurring, then I can doubt that X is true or occurring. So it is possible that I'm dreaming that X, right? I could be dreaming right now that I'm looking at my computer screen, that I'm on Zoom. So since it's possible, I can't, and I can doubt it, I can't know it. It can't be the foundation for my knowledge. So given 1 and 2, I can doubt that X is occurring.